So let's make sure we can also press the other buttons. And for that, the thing we can do is we can add more functions. We can add another function which could be called subtract, because that's what it should do. We can add another function which should in the end multiply values, and a fourth function for this, which is called divide, which does just that. Now we have all these functions, which of course are empty right now. There's nothing in the function body, but they are defined. And now let's add logic. Now the logic is generally the same as in the add function. So I'll copy that and adjust it. I want to get the entered number. And here, by the way, I can reuse that constant name because, as you learned, this constant or any variable or constant which you define inside of a function belongs to this single function, and therefore you can use the same name in another function because these two are totally detached from each other. This name is now not reused because it's not available outside of the function anyways, hence we can use it in multiple functions. So here I'm also getting the user input. Then here my description of course is different. I want to have a minus here, and the calculation also is different. I want to have my current result, which is calculated with a minus instead of a plus. Now you see, there's still some code repetition we have here, still some code we needed to copy. There are some pieces of code we can't avoid copying, or we can't avoid reusing, like here getting access to the number input. We don't necessarily need to store this in a brand new constant. We could use it directly in the places where we need that entered number, like here. But I find it a bit easier to read if we store it in a new constant. But for generating this log text and outputting this, this is actually something we can put into a function to share and reuse the code instead of copying it. So I can add a new function up here. And again, it's just my pattern that I like to use, that I define functions before I use them. So if I use a function down there, I define it above, but that's up to you. The order does not matter, as you learned. So here I'll add a new function, name it create and write log or something like this, which should write that output, or therefore create and write output maybe. And now this function will need 3 operators to work the way I want it to work. I'm interested in the operator that was used in that function, and you can name this however you want. This should be some text which contains the plus, minus, or so on. Not the real operator which we could use because you can't pass an operator as an argument, but we can pass a text which contains the operator so that we can output it. Then I need the result before calculation and the calculation number, let's say, so the number which was used in the calculation. And then I can grab this calc description and create it here. Now the operator is also dynamic, so I'll also embed this and use my operator. And I have my result before calculation and the calc number. These are the 3 pieces which I combine together into one text. So that's text here. It's not a mathematical equation which is executed by JavaScript. It's just some output text which I'm generating here. And thereafter, I'll call output result here. I can refer to the current result because that's a global variable which gets changed. And my calc description, well, that's this constant. And now the idea is that here, I can actually run create and write output. The operator here was the plus, and I need that to build that string correctly, which describes the operation which was performed. The result before calc, which is my second parameter that is expected, and the order does matter, of course. So my second parameter here is the result before we ran this calculation. So here, that's current result before we ran it. To store this, I can add a new constant. Initial result maybe, which is current result before we change it. Now, since we copy that value, initial result won't change if we then run this line. That's what I also explained earlier. So now we can pass initial result here. And the calc number, of course, is the entered number here. So now we can use that also down there and get rid of that line with output result and where we build the calc description. And here instead just forward that minus. And yes, we need to copy that initial result code. So still some copied code, but the logic of building that string and of outputting it in our web page, that is outsourced into a new function. And all that refactoring, as this process is called, where we move code around and try to write it in a more elegant way, is totally optional. I just want to get you used to it because it is something you will need in your life, in your day as a programmer, as a developer. You want to write elegant code where you don't repeat yourself and where you then try to split your logic. There rarely is a single right or wrong way of doing it, but getting started with it and thinking about it is always something you should do. So now with that, let's actually copy that logic into multiply. And there we need the star operator. And here in the calculation, of course, also the asterisk here to multiply this. And for dividing, here we need the slash, which is the division operator, and also output this here in our log. And now with that, if we save all of that, we just need to register the event listeners for these buttons. So just as we have an add button in the vendor file, we got a subtract, multiply, and divide button, so we can use these as well. So here I'll add subtract button, and then just copy this code here, but of course point at the subtract function here, and then repeat that, but of course now use the multiply and the divide button here. So multiply and divide button, and point at multiply and at divide. Now with that, if we save that and we reload this page, if I add 5 with the plus, 0 plus 5, now enter 3 and then click minus, 5 minus 3, and the calculator now just works such that you need to enter the value and then press the button where you want to use that value with the previous result. That's how this calculator works. That's why it's the unconventional calculator. So now let's add 10 and star. So we had 2, so now it should be 2 times 10, and that's the case. And finally divide by 4 maybe, and we get 5. So this all works. Now we connected a couple of buttons to our functions, and we also had a first look at code refactoring and code reusage, an art which you will master as you work as a developer, and where you shouldn't worry if you're not totally sure how to split your code yet. That is something that comes with experience and something you will also do a lot throughout this course. So by the end of the course, you'll already feel way more confident about that than you probably do right now.